Let's talk a little bit about a scripting language alternative to Python. There is a need for a scripting language, and you'll see this with Bash, for example. You start doing some stuff and you go, oh, Bash is kind of terrible. And so you reach for a scripting language. One of the problems with Python is the packaging has, for a long time, really had big problems. It's gotten a lot better with UV, but still, it's a legacy language that has lots of problems. For example, the GIL was a problem, the typing was a problem, the speed was a problem, async IO is a problem. And so the Node runtime started to address some of those problems. Now, it itself has lots of problems, but in 2025, the evolution of Node is pretty interesting because there's these other runtimes available. So one of them is TPX. You can run pure TypeScript, and then it will actually be an alternative to other scripting languages, which is pretty interesting, especially if you have to do a lot of JavaScript coding. But also there's Deno. So let's talk a little bit about Deno, which is a Rust-based runtime. And what's really interesting about it is you can build standalone executables. And I think this is probably its killer feature over anything else. And in terms of the TypeScript support, it has first class TypeScript integration. It has static type checking, which is going to help you improve your code quality. So I think the static typing is critical in the period of agents and AI assisted coding. And if we look at better IDE support with autocomplete and error detection, you also have the ability to have the typing catch errors before runtime. Now let's get into the superior performance as well. Because Node has the V8 engine, it gives you this just-in-time compilation optimization. And this is a lot faster than CPython for most workloads. Again, there's no GIL. You get async by default. It's a first class. It's built into the language, not a bolt-on. You also have much better memory management as well than Python. It's optimized for modern CPU, really high throughput. Oftentimes you can get multiples of performance. And then in terms of the startup time, it's going to be very fast as well with the Deno runtime. And you have this really efficient binary data handling. The other thing that's really, really interesting about Deno is this zero dependency philosophy. So there's no package.json, which is annoying, or any other external package manager. URLs are imports, and it simplifies the dependency. There's a built-in standard library for common operations. There's version dependencies that are in code, not in separate files. The imports are cached and verified with lock files. There's no node modules folder. It's really easy to audit what's happening, and there's a smaller footprint. And then in terms of security, you have to explicitly tell Deno, hey, I want access to the file or network or environment access. And then in terms of granular permission, you have that ability, right, to turn things on or off. You have the ability to do runtime verification, no arbitrary code execution by default. There's sandboxed execution. And then if we look at simplified bundling, I think that's a really interesting killer feature here that I was talking about before, is that you have this ability to have a consistent execution across platforms. So there is a fixed cost to the bundling. So it's, let's say, about 75 megabytes. But because of this, you don't have to have virtual environments, which I think are terrible. I mean, conceptually, they were interesting, but really in practice are terrible because of the fact that you don't know if you're in a virtual environment or not, and there's all kinds of weird dependency issues. But a bootstrapped environment for scripting languages, I think, is really the right choice. And you don't have to have an interpreter as well, and it makes it way simpler to deploy something. I mean, one of the really difficult things about deploying software is that there's some runtime, dependency that all of a sudden breaks, and then your deployment breaks. In terms of the developer experience as well, because there's so much built-in stuff, you get built-in Deno format. So again, this is like Rust, where they included all of these things for you: cargo format, cargo build, cargo clippy. Same with Deno, you get all these things built in for you, auto completion in the shell. And then in terms of web standards, it's also available with things like the standard promise web workers, uses standard ES modules as well, so you can import other TypeScript, and then it has all of the modern JavaScript features. So in terms of complementing Rust, I think what we can see here is that if it's something that feels more of like a script, you could start with the TypeScript, run it inside of Deno, and in fact build a standalone executable, so you still get that Rust style executable, and you could actually start with that. And then if you need it to get more performant, or you want a smaller binary, then you could obviously convert it to Rust. And so I think that the Deno TypeScript is potentially the perfect scripting language for Rust, and I think it's definitely worth looking at. And then the shared philosophy as well, like you have, safety and developer experience. You also have the ability to bridge between WebAssembly if you're going to build something inside of WebAssembly. And so in terms of a full stack, TypeScript, Deno, and Rust is very compelling because you're going to be able to have this unified developer experience. Also a lot of interoperability, also a lot of deployment synergies, again, because you can build these binaries, and you're going to have a reduced infrastructure cost as well. So the real world scenarios here would be like DevOps tooling, replacing Python scripts with more performant and type safe alternatives. So I think this is a very interesting emerging use case for Deno. Is a premium DevOps tool, microservices as well. If you want to build a really quick script, data processing, CLI applications, web development, also enterprise applications here as well. So what I've seen so far with Deno and my experience with it is I do think it's a very compelling thing to look at in 2025. If you want to complement Rust and you like kind of the Rust philosophy about a lot of things, and you also want to have a little bit of scripting, maybe replace some bash that you do, I think Deno with TypeScript is a very compelling thing to take a look at. And we're going to have some courses on this very soon. Within the month of May, I'm going to build some stuff on Deno. So hope you stay tuned, and look forward to talking to you a little bit more about some of the stuff I'm doing with Deno at Pragmatic AI Labs.